Hi there, Sam Sorbo here with the debate recap. I know I've been a little bit amiss in keeping you guys up to date with our debate clubs that we have. We have two debate clubs. And so before the break, we decided that we were going to debate the federal government should mandate the use of cloth masks in public. This was a kid's choice. They decided that they wanted to pursue it as a team policy debate. And I fielded 4 teams in one club and 2 teams in the other club. And so right after the break, we came back and we did our first debate with the 4 teams. So we had 2 debates going in 2 rooms and 4 debaters per debate. And it was very exciting and had some surprising results. At one point, one of my students started to ask the girl he was asking her because she was for the resolution that the federal government should mandate the use of face masks in public. And he said, I see you're not wearing a face mask. And she answered, that's correct. And he said, well, if you actually believed in face masks, why wouldn't you wear a face mask? I mean, it seems like you're a bit hypocritical, aren't you? Something along those lines. And it was kind of nasty. And the audience was sort of like, ooh, that didn't sound right. And I sort of butted in and I said, we don't get personal. And I just sort of shut it down so that it didn't go any further. And he recognized that he had overstepped a boundary, that he'd done something he'd gone a little bit too far. And so what was fascinating was when he got up to give his rebuttal, he apologized. He said, and I ask you for your forgiveness because in the heat of the moment, I got a little bit impassioned and that was inappropriate. And I recognized that. And then he moved on. And I mean, I think he's 15 years old. Like, these kids are amazing. And the young kids, the 12 and 13-year-olds are doing an amazing job. So that was very, and strangely, I will say it's funny because the negative team in that debate was convinced that they would win because they don't believe that the federal government should mandate the use of face. They were like, no, absolutely not. So they thought for sure they were going to win. And the team that was arguing for the mandate doesn't believe in mandates. And they thought for sure they were going to lose. And wouldn't you know, they actually won. And the lesson there is it's not so much whether you believe in what you're arguing for. It's whether you can make that case and make it convincingly enough to negate what the other side is for. And they did a much better job. Of course, the negative side kind of stepped in it because he overstepped some boundaries and the judges really didn't like that. And so they were marked off for that and stuff. But I think even so, all around, it was a more compelling case for, we should mandate face masks. And because the evidence that they brought forward was not well enough refuted, it stood. I mean, in my head, I know the arguments, but if I don't hear the arguments, I have to rule in favor of the side that's more convincing. So that's how that worked. So then we had to take a week off in both groups. And then when we came back, we debated both on Wednesday with my 2 teams up north and on Thursday with my 4 other teams that had already debated. So up north, those 2 teams were brand new. And I'm just going to give you a quick recap because I know I've talked to you guys already about why we pursue this, why this is such a good thing. And by the way, I just went on the STOA, STOA.org, STOAUSA.org website, and I'm using their ballots and I just give the ballots to the parent judges. And you don't have to have any special skills. Your job is to write down anything remarkable in the debate, any of your observations that you think are worthy of pointing out for the debaters so that they can improve themselves, because their job is to convince you. And if they're not accomplishing that, perhaps you can give them some pointers on why. So to get parent judges, it's not rocket science. It's just, can you please give us your opinion on this stuff? And what I've discovered is the parents are really starting I mean, they're really enjoying it, not just because their kids are doing so phenomenally well, but because they're learning and they're appreciating. And so it's a lot of fun. So I wanted to tell you, because I do write up a little bit of a recap for my debaters also. So I wanted to share with you all some of the highlights for me. We had one debater in the last debate use as his conclusion, he used an appeal to emotion. Can't we just do the right thing and help people out and help protect them? And it was very effective. And so, of course, I put in the notes, hey, this is a very effective technique. It's used all the time, frankly. So use it, but use it wisely, because if you only appeal to emotion, then your audience is going to go, but wait, what about the evidence? Why aren't they going back and rehashing some of the evidence that supports their opinion? Or are they just trying to win me over with, crocodile tears? And so it can backfire. So you have to be a little bit careful. We had one debater use a demonstration to make a point about the efficacy of the mask. Now, this debater is not particularly emotional in his presentation. He tends to be very dry. So for him to sort of break away from that very dry, reading his case and making just the very staid, laid back sort of arguments, for him to break away and say, let me take a minute and explain to you what we're talking about. When you wear the mask, around the sides, there are some holes, there are some openings, right? And when you suck in, when you breathe in, that there's a force that happens that does draw air in from the sides, which is excellent. However, when you breathe out, you're not breathing out with as much force. We don't breathe out like, and so when you breathe out, the air doesn't exit as easily as it comes in. And that's the difference that we're talking about. And so when he made that, I know the two other judges in the room with me were like, wow, that just went a whole long way for me to trust this person, for me to understand what they're trying to tell me, and for me to feel included in that he was really looking out for my interests, that I would be able to understand him. It was very, very effective. And I don't know if he had planned that. I want to talk to him and find out if that was something that he had planned to do. Maybe his parents had coached him on that, which is excellent. I'm thrilled, right? Or if it was something that just occurred to him in the spur of the moment. We had some phenomenal and very meaningful statistics regarding the efficacy of masks and their uses and all of that. One debater took the time to translate his statistics for the listener, which was very effective, because a lot of times these kids will show up and they'll say the quote and they'll think that it just says it all, and then they move on. But the fact is, when you're hearing it for the first time, sometimes you need a little bit of a translation. And so this debater actually took the time and said, so what the scientist is actually saying here is that it's much more effective to use an N95 mask than, or whatever it is. But he took the time to sort of translate what the quote meant and also what the statistics meant. And that made our jobs easier, frankly. We had one debater get asked what his source was. His source was OSHA. And when he read it as OSHA. And of course, the judges are sitting there as adults and we're listening and we're hearing OSHA. We're going, that's OSHA. That's OSHA. The other debaters are hearing, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And so, of course, and very good for them, they went up and crossed and they said, what is OSHA? And unfortunately, the debater couldn't tell them. And he said, I think I have it in my notes, but I can't remember. So, one of the tips is, hey, know your sources and know how meaningful they are. So if you're going to cite OSHA, tell us what OSHA is. Why should we believe OSHA? Just because you're citing it doesn't mean that it has the gravitas that it should have. You have to cite it and tell us why. Why are we bothering to listen to that person, to that citation, right? We had a team make an economic argument for masks. So it was no longer, they sort of got away from the health benefits of wearing masks. They said, if everybody will wear a mask, we can get back to business. Let's just mandate the masks and get back to business and get the economy back up and running, which I thought was ingenious, very clever, and very good arguments, frankly. The statistics that they gave for the downturn in the economy and all of that. And then we had one debater bring up a previous court case, which frankly I've since forgotten, so I can't remember exactly sort of how it pertained, but it was a court case where the federal government had tried to mandate something and had failed, basically. He even talked about prohibition and the fact that it was not effective. In fact, if anything, it almost led to more alcohol usage because people were trying to get around the prohibition. And so he was saying, sure, mandate the mask, but then you're going to have a lot of people, refusing and getting around it and that kind of a thing. So my last point to them was, don't be stingy with your ideas. In other words, if you have an idea and you're going to be sort of the second debater, or even if you're the first in your team, you need to share those ideas with your teammate. It's a team effort, and you have to sort of put on a united front in your debate because you're sort of tag teaming the other side. You go, your partner goes, you go, your partner goes, you go, your partner goes. So you're tag teaming them. So you really need to create, the two of you need to be interlocked together and creating that barrier so they can't penetrate it and knock down your arguments. And sometimes, a young person or even an older person will have an idea and they'll be so afraid that somebody's just going to steal the idea and run with it that they want to hold it back and have it as a surprise during the debate. And so I'm cautioning the kids to be generous, because what happens is when you have a good idea and you share it, it gives the opportunity for someone to build on it. It's in the exchange that wealth is created. And so when they build on it, maybe you can even build on it more. Don't necessarily think that your one good idea is the end of all good ideas, or even the end of all good ideas for you, because that has not been my experience. So that's it. That's my debate recap. And it's been amazing. So we have a clear winner from our 4-team debates. We have 2 sort of in second place, and then our last place. And then we have the debate that happened on the Wednesday. And so this coming week, what I'm hoping for is I'm bringing the Wednesday teams down so they can each have another debate against one of the 4 teams. And we'll just run 2 more debates and see how things pan out. And they're very excited. It's so cool because when I said that, the kids were like, what? They're going to come down here? Yes, that's awesome. They're so excited to do this. And that's why I want to encourage you parents out there, start a debate club, start a speech club. The kids love the challenge. And this is where they get their chops. This is when they're really working on their, instrument, their technique. It's these are the ages when they can fail and it's not going to hurt as badly because they're only this high off the ground instead of this high off the ground. So give them that opportunity. Let's create a culture of debaters. And I talked about this on the radio show actually because it's such an important point. Dialogue is the last thing before violence. If you can't dialogue, then violence is the last resort. That's why what the left is doing to the dialogue right now, suppression of speech, is so very dangerous. And when the left tells you that they don't want violence, they're actually meaning the exact opposite, because all of their actions lead to violence, point to violence as the conflict resolution, as opposed to diplomacy. So That's it for me. Thanks so much for listening. This has been Debate Prep. And yeah, be encouraged. Go out there and get it done. Even if it's just one time, even if it's just, hey, let's try debate evening on Friday, and have a bunch of kids to your house and just try it. Do that because it's a lot of fun. You will be blessed. And I guarantee you'll have a great time. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.